Hey everyone, how you doing? This is Amon Green, Gourmet Packers all-time leading rusher, and you're watching Packers Total Access Live, your daily source for Packer content. Go Pack, go!
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Join alongside Jacob in Wisconsin. We've got Emilio joining us here shortly. Tim is on assignment, doing something way more important than losing brain cells, hanging out in here with me and Jacob tonight. So, Jacob, Bub, how was your day, sir? How we doing?
It was good. It was long. Not even going to go there. We had really nice weather today, about 65 and sunny, absolutely beautiful day. Oh. And yeah, man, I'm ready to talk a little bull.
Same here, man. I see people falling into the chat. Good to see everybody in here. We got Taylor, the Packer News, in the house. We've got, Mike Berry in here. Good to see Mike Berry. Get to meet him at the draft. So good to meet you up there, sir. Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you've recovered from the oak stroganoff by now. Let's see. We got Affam in here. Affam, the mustache is back on Affam, so we're good to go. We're ready to roll. Harry Cheese, Ben Holden, Eric Snyder. What's up, Eric? Good to see you, man. King Tron in the house. Ron Samble. Do you rant? Elijah Gwynn, thank you so much for the heads up earlier today. You guys may have noticed hour 2 of the podcast didn't go out until, I don't know, about midday. For whatever reason, it didn't take last night when we uploaded it, and luckily Elijah Gwynn shot me a DM over on Patreon to let me know it wasn't up. So Mandy helped me get that thing put online and everything, so we were good to go after that. She's a pro. I got to put her on the payroll now, man. That's how that's working. So, but let's jump into the big news of the day. Obviously, the Packers. We knew right as we approached the 1st of May, the 5th-year option news was going to drop, or if the news did not drop, then obviously they decided not the 5th-year option, neither Quay or Devonte Wyatt, but that's not the case here, as Devonte Wyatt is going to be hit with the 5th-year option for the Packers. Jordan Schultz was the first person I seen with the news. He actually DM'd it over, said the Packers are exercising the 5th-year option on defensive tackle Devonte Wyatt, locking in a guaranteed $12.9 million for the 2026 season. The number 28 pick in 2022 has totaled 12 sacks in 3 seasons with Green Bay. Now, you see those numbers, you think that's really bad. When you're playing defensive line in a 34 front, you got to throw the sacks out the window, right? Now, last year, obviously, he led all interior defensive linemen, defensive tackles on the Packers with sacks with 5.5, but we'll kind of dive into everything. Before we get into some of the PFF grades and the numbers and the contract comparison, all that stuff, Jacob, how do you feel about Devonte Wyatt here with the 5th-year option at $12.9 million? On the surface, you go, man, that seems like a little bit of money there, but when you look at it comparatively across the league, obviously it's not as bad as you think.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys know me, I'm the cheap guy. So if I thought this was a bad deal, I'd have no problems telling you right now. I just think Devonte Wyatt is ascending still. And that obviously you look at those numbers, like you said, do I wish they were better or more impressive? Obviously, yeah. But like you said, that's just not how it works sometimes when you're in that 3-4 front, especially when you're part of the hockey rotation that we kind of have had, especially when he was in his younger years. And obviously, I think that he's a different type of player. He's not exactly the type of D tackle that should dictate,
right,
top 3 type money. But he is a real good pass rushing D tackle that I think, again, is going to have his best football still in front of him. So I got no problems with it.
Yeah, same here. Pretty much, you summed it up for me as well. And we'll dive into all the numbers, all the analytics and everything in just a second. Eric Snyder became a member here on YouTube. Appreciate the support, Eric. Just want to let you know, too, though. We would rather you join the Patreon group, which you can get to the QR code in the upper right, or just go to patreon.com/PackerFan Total Access. The reason being is you get a lot more bang for your $3 buck there. It's about the same as getting a YouTube membership. This article we're covering here, you get content pretty much daily. We'll have our Chalk Talks in there. We'll have Chalk Talk episodes breaking down a tape from last year. It's going to be kind of the hub for PTA in the 2025 Green Bay Packers season. Again, if you'd rather support on YouTube, we greatly appreciate that. Just want to let you know that you get a lot more content over on Patreon for sure. But thank you so much for the support. We appreciate it. Chris Casual in says Wyatt needs more snaps, all caps. I agree with that. We know that this is a Matt LaFleur thing. They tried to blame it on Mike Pettin. They being the fans, us, we tried to blame it on Mike Pettin. Then we tried to blame it on Joe Barry. And now we're going, okay, at least I am. I'm going, all right, this ain't a DC thing. This is obviously a Matt LaFleur approach with the heavy rotation on defensive line. And I understand that you're trying to keep fresh bodies in there, Jacob, on the defensive line, but you're also preventing the offensive line from really teeing up on the pass rush moves. You know what I mean? Because as a defensive lineman, you want, 2, 3, maybe 4 pass rush moves, and you want to set those moves up. Well, if they're constantly rotating guys in and out, you would imagine it would have the effect on an offensive lineman of, crap, who's in here now? What's going to be his next move, right? A little element of surprise. But I think also there's a little bit to that, kind of like a running back, not letting them get into their rhythm too as a pass rusher. You know what I'm saying?
That's literally what Chris just typed as you were saying that, pass rush. And I agree. It's I can remember back when I was playing football and actually could run pretty decent, back in the day. It took a while to kind of get in a groove, and if you are getting plucked in every now and then, it's like it's hard, like you said, to set people up with certain moves and technique, and then all of a sudden you don't have enough actual reps to get that guy doing a certain thing that you want to take advantage of it. So it's a double-edged sword. I do understand what Matt's trying to do if it is Matt that's deciding that we want that hockey rotation. It's a double-edged sword for sure.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, man. Definitely. Let's see what else we got here. Was it? Okay, here we go. Romero Hill says, question, is a 5th-year option pickup similar to a franchise tag? It's really just like a mini franchise tag, essentially, Romero. The way it works is of any first-round picks that you take, you have the option to hit them with the 5th-year option, okay? And what it does is it's a set amount and it's fully guaranteed. That's very similar to the franchise tag as where it's fully guaranteed. And it allows a team to say, okay, we really like this guy. We want a 5th year to get them under contract. Now, in some cases, I'm sure there are situations where they can't work out a deal even though they hit them with a 5th year option. And maybe they move right into a franchise tag. I don't know if that's happened yet or not. But it's obvious here with the Packers, what they're planning on doing is using that 5th year option to bridge that gap. Now, what's cool is, to the best of my knowledge, we did learn that you can move that money around as well, where it's fully guaranteed. You could tack on a couple of voidable years and push that cap number out if you wanted to. Also, as you restructure a new deal, you can kind of bake that into it. And what I mean by that is I'm almost positive, just like the franchise tag, you can remove it if you work out a new deal. But I'm not 100% sure that if somebody wants to fact check that, which I'm still learning stuff about the cap on the daily. I'm hearing a lot of reporters saying that Jair Alexander's contract is fully guaranteed as soon as he makes a roster week 1. Even if he's hurt, you have to pay it. I didn't realize that, because we've heard so many different side stories of, well, if they're inactive, then they don't get that game check. Evidently, there's something there that I'm missing. And I don't care enough about the cap to really try to argue back and forth and really dive into it too much, but still learning a lot. But yeah, in terms of the 5th year option, it's very similar to the franchise tag, just much cheaper, obviously. You hit a defensive tackle with the franchise tag, Jake, is probably going to be well over 30 million, maybe 40 million. I don't know, right? Because it's the average, I think, of the top 5 at that position. So in this case, it definitely makes sense for the Packers to try to bridge that gap. As we move along here, this is the Green Bay Packers have exercised the 5th year option on defensive tackle Devonte Wyatt's rookie contract, securing him for the 2026 season at a cost of $12.9 million. This move ensures the 2022 first-round pick remains with the team through his age 28 season, providing stability to a defensive line that has benefited from Wyatt's disruptive presence, including 5.5 sacks in 2024. The decision is likely a strategic bridge, given the Packers time to negotiate a long-term contract extension with Wyatt, who has emerged as a key piece of their defensive front, potentially locking him up for multiple years as they aim to build a championship caliber roster. Now, it's talking about that will carry him through the 28th season. I imagine what they would like to do is turn that 5th year option, instead of a 1-year fully guaranteed $12 million deal, turn it into a 3-year extension, taking him up to the age of 30. And then you can kind of see how everybody feels. And we all know a 3-year extension really means a 2-year extension, right? It's 2 with the option of a 3, essentially, is how Goody likes to operate, and Russ Ball likes to operate there as well. So what do you think? I really like the way that fell into place. It makes all the sense in the world to try to, all right, we want rights to him up to the age of 30. And then who knows, if he turns the corner and he continues to ascend, then yeah, keep him around. But he's definitely going to be the 3 tech on the team, it seems.
Yeah, and I think it's smart, especially with losing Slayton. Kenny is definitely going to be long in the tooth, and I don't see him being around for much longer at all. And getting a guy like Warren and a few of the others that possibly could end up being more of that actual nose 1-0 tech that we have kind of lacked, other than TJ Slayton. I think that maybe free him up to do what he does best, which again is rush the passer. And like you mentioned, if he does, if he could even be in the mid 70s for a run defense grade kind of thing, and while he's still maintaining that pressure rate, he could be a very, very good player for us for a very long time. Well, at least till 30, right? And like you said, I really do like that outlook that nowadays guys seemingly are playing longer. They're coming out a little older, you know what I mean? So it's starting to really kind of see the average lifespan of certain positions kind of either, just changing. It's not the same as it used to be. So I think you have to keep that in mind too when you're projecting out these players' careers.
Definitely. Ron Samble in the chat says 5th-year option is all guaranteed correct. That is correct, sir. PJB says, let's sign Stephon Gilmore. You guys know how I feel about signing players and re-signing players for the right price. Absolutely. But the question is how much, right? And Stephon Gilmore, in my opinion, his best football is way behind him. So now you got to ask yourself, who are you taking off the field in that cornerback room? Are you going to stunt Carrington Valentine's growth, who took a huge step last year, in my opinion? Do you stunt his growth to get him on the field? Do you stunt Keyshawn Nixon's growth? I mean, the reality is this is only his, 2nd or 3rd year as a starter, and then playing outside corner last year, which I imagine is where he's going to be this year, is where he played his best cornerback. So do you take him off the field and put Stephon Gilmore on there for 1 year? For me, on the surface, PJB, I would say no. But again, for a veteran minimum, there's no harm in that either, I don't think, Jacob. But that's kind of how I feel about that. J. Cole says Kenny at 1 tech and Wyatt at 3 tech. Starting, that's what it was last year, J. Cole. Many people don't realize that, we're in the nickel the large majority of the time, anywhere from 65 to 75% of the defensive snaps. So people immediately just think Kenny Clark was the 3 tech. That wasn't the case in the nickel. If anybody was playing shade 1, 2 eye, that was Kenny. And Devonte Wyatt was playing that 3 to 4 eye tech, right? Which is a 3 tech is what we talk about. So now TJ Slayton in the base defense would come in and play the nose. He would play the 1, and then that would kick Kenny to a 3, right? And that's when Devonte Wyatt wasn't on the field. So that kind of goes hand in hand with what Chris M was saying of I want Devonte Wyatt on the field more. I think what comes into play there, not just a hockey rotation, to kind of go back to what Chris said based off what J. Cole kind of brought up here, is Devonte Wyatt's got to improve his run defense, man. He's got to, if you want him in that base package on the field, I think that's really what that comes down to, because essentially what you're going to have is 2 big bodies in the middle and 2 edge defenders, and there might be a situation where you play a run-heavy team where you put 3 big guys in there, 1 edge defender, and maybe throw a Sam on the line of scrimmage if you're worried about them play action, out of that look too. So let's see here. Ben Holden says Packers now have 3 defensive tackles from Georgia. That's wild, man, with Nazir Stackhouse. All right. And Jacob, I believe Nazir Stackhouse actually won 2 national championships with Georgia, if I understood correctly. So it's a guy who's played a lot of football. If you can get over the narcolepsy, man, I don't mean to laugh because I know it's a medical condition, but it's just the thought of a guy falling asleep on the bench and it not being because he doesn't care is just wild to think about. Hey, get your ass in there. Wake up. Hey, let's go. Come on, get in. Like, what are you doing? He said it was so many times. He's like, man, I just had to bang out a nap real quick and then get back in.
Yeah. That I can't imagine playing professional sports with that type of medical issue, which, more props to him for getting this far. And I think there honestly could be a sneaky need for him on this 53-man roster. If he outplays a few guys, like your Woodens and your Brooks, as much as I love them, they're on the chopping block now. They just simply are. And if he comes in and is able to, so what, it would be Wyatt, is it Warren Brinson and Nazir would be the 3 from Georgia, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, Brinson's very interesting as well, man, for sure.
Yeah.
So Debfish says, I'm not surprised with Wyatt getting the 5th-year option, especially after we bypassed defensive tackle early in the draft. It's a great point, Debfish. And I was already screaming he was going to get the 5th-year option even before the draft, and I was hoping they would take a 3-tech, because I'm telling you, man, you can't have too many 3-techs. You look at all the good teams across the league, they've got a dominant 3-tech. And if you're not 110% sold on Devonte Wyatt being that dominant 3-tech, that Jalen Carter, that Aaron Donald type, which I think we would all agree he's not at that level, then you better keep swinging until you get one, you know? So, but who knows, man? Maybe he'll step right into that role, take a step forward this year, finish with 8 or 9 sacks, and be a dominant force. I hope it works out for sure, man. One of my favorite plays from last year was that fumble recovery against Jacksonville where Edgerrin Cooper strip sacked Trevor Lawrence, and there's a big offensive lineman just rumbling over. He's going to jump on the ball, and Devonte Wyatt just, creams him out of the way and lands on the ball. That was a great hustle play there. I think he plays the game the right way for sure. Josh Martin with the super chat. Appreciate it, buddy. Says Clayton, they order your donuts? Yeah, there it is. So obviously me and Chris N had a bet here that the bet was, I thought they would fifth-year option at least one of the two in Quay Walker or Devonte Wyatt, and I've been pretty vocal. I didn't see him doing Quay Walker simply because, you got a lot of edge defenders at linebacker that's going to spike that price up on him, and him playing strictly stack backer. I know he rushes from time to time, but he's a stack backer in Jeff Hafley's defense and the way Matt LaFleur has utilized him under multiple defensive coordinators now. I just thought Devonte Wyatt, they liked him a lot. And the reality is pass rush is king, especially in Green Bay. That's what they want. And he's the best pass rushing interior defensive tackle. So here's what we did. Chris Ann reached out to me, a man of his word. He's like, hey, where you want those donuts sent to? We're going to do the donuts as a giveaway one night, Jacob. So we're going to do some kind of contest, something we'll put together and get creative with it. Maybe Chris can help me. Maybe that can be a part of the punishment there, Chris, is you help me put together a creative way to give these away, but we'll just have some donuts shipped right to somebody's door from Krispy Kreme. So, yeah, but appreciate the super chat, Josh. You're the man. H.E. Soder, Wyatt was better in the 4-man front. I would agree with that, Jacob, because it fits what he does, pin your ears back and go. And there was definitely more of that rather than 2-gapping last year. Although there's still 2-gap, it depends on what the offense is running. But I do think he fits the 4-3 a little bit better, don't you?
Yeah, I do. And I just think as we surround him with more and more better talent, that he has the ability to really kind of break out and show what he's capable of. Like you said, him taking 2-gap, and it's not ideal. He's not necessarily that type of D tackle that's going to just be eating those up and, like your Pat Williams, Kevin Williams type. He's more of the rush the quarterback guy, So I want to see him be able to utilize his strengths in the best way possible, and I think that's with the 4-3.
Definitely. Donovan in the chat says, I can't remember being more excited for a draft pick than I am for number 99, Sorrell. Could not agree more. We were in the bowl. We were in Lambeau watching the draft when they made that pick. And to see him come out from backstage and actually be at the draft and to experience that with other Packer fans in Lambeau Field was really, really cool. Now, we had already headed out of the stadium and done some other stuff by the time he did his Lambeau leap, or else we would have been right there with it, which would have been really, really cool. I almost wish they would announce stuff like that so you don't miss out on it, But, yeah, I'm with you, man. Sorrell is one of those guys for me that I'm very excited about, Jacob. When you turn on the tape with him, man, and we had him – I want to say we had him in the 140 or 120-ish spot, somewhere around there. I feel like I haven't looked at the board in 6 months, but I know – I'm very excited to see what Sorrell can do because he plays the game the right way, and his tackling ability is really what sticks out to me on the tape, man. Yeah,
definitely. Physically and all that, he checks the boxes. I think that more than anything, again, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. If there was a measurable for being a Packer guy, it sounds like he is just the epitome of a Packers guy. The locker room comes from a good family. It seems like, wants to be involved in the community. Obviously, you saw what he did, being willing to stick around for day 3. When obviously, it's not easy to do, man. You've seen all these egos. You've seen what the other side of that spectrum can look like when guys are just clearly just worried about themselves and what their, headlines are going to read and all that kind of stuff. So I'm excited as well. And also, is it for sure he's wearing 99?
He is, yes.
I love that. I love that.
That's a sick number, dude, for a big. Yeah. I mean, that's 99 just looks like an ass kicker number. You know what I mean? When you see somebody wearing 99, it's like, yeah, they're maxed out. Let's go. Andy Watkins with the super chat. Thank you, Andy. He says, are there any trades you'd like to see the Packers make before the new season? That's a great question. Jacob, I'll let you go first, man. Is there anything that it doesn't have to be a specific player, like, is there a position like, hey, I'd like to see them go try to solidify this position, or maybe it's a player that you'd like to see them part ways with, man? Anything come to mind for you there? I can go first if you need me to, but
I mean, to be completely honest, I don't. I think we're pretty much stacked at linebacker, at least to the point where I want to see what we have in our third backer. Corner, we got too many guys right now to kind of know what to do with. Safety room's fine.
Mm-hmm.
The offense, what are you going to do? Add another wide receiver? No. You're going to add an offensive lineman? I would doubt it. Tight ends, we got 2 studs and a couple guys that are I just don't see it happening.
Right. For me, the thing that comes to mind for me in terms of trading for a player, trying to think of what position would I be like, okay, let's solidify that. I think I would be more interested, Andy, and I'm kind of copping out here on that front. I'd be more interested in who's coming off the scrap heap from roster cuts, like rather than give up a pick, like who can we sign that maybe is a veteran to raise that age a touch like we talked about. Some people are going, why do you want to get older? Because again, man, there's never been a team that was the youngest team in the league that won the Super Bowl, and I'm ready to win a damn Super Bowl. It's going to take historical things to do it with the youngest roster. So maybe there is a player that you could pick up off the scrap heap. Now, in terms of players you might potentially trade away, I hate to say it, but we kind of talked about it a little bit last night, and I think I may be the only one on this podcast that feels like this, but after hearing the Romeo Doubs rumors that they're going to potentially trade him, they were trying to trade him in a package for DK Metcalf, it tells me that Goody's ready to move on. And, if Dobby is – I love Doubs as a person, right? And I think he's a good receiver. I think he's a damn good receiver. But the last thing you need, Jacob, is holding Matthew Golden back because you're trying to get Doubs more touches, and I don't think they would go out of their way to do that. So for me, it would probably be, we looked at the receiver room last night, and I think it would be, hey, let's see what we could get for Romeo Doubs. He wants a fresh start too. Obviously last year he had issues with his role on the team. It ain't got to be something where we're like, screw this guy, get rid of him. We hate each other. It could just be a mutual, hey, we're parting ways. Now, a lot of times pass. Maybe Romeo feels now, hey, this is where I want to be, and there's still time to right that ship too. So that's the one player that comes to mind for me right now. Some people are going, what about Jair? Yeah, if you can't reconcile everything to a T to where he can play and be effective for the team, I'm okay with trading him away too. But me personally, I think that both sides are kind of coming to a realization of, maybe it is best that we kind of keep this thing together for at least another year, because the trade value isn't there for the teams. The contract value isn't there on the market for Jair, according to the reports we've heard. So, yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Andy. But I'm more of a, once you get past the draft, not really too interested in trades. Let's just kind of get these guys trained up and let's hit the ground running. Thank you for the super chat. Josh Martin with the super chat. Who do you think was our best and worst value pick? Jacob, you're the king of value, bro. What comes to time for you, sir? What are you thinking?
I definitely thought that the biggest reach was for the second round lineman, but as we'll take a look at some point in this episode, that dude, he's grown on me quite a bit. You really don't find guys that are that big, that aggressive, that play within a certain type of way, that can play left tackle, right tackle, both guard positions. I think we had, or most people had, like a 3rd or 4th round projection on him, and we took him in, mid to late second, which I don't think it's that much of a stretch anymore, especially because like what happened in Philly, we fell apart once we lost a few key components. And then as soon as we got bowled over in the trenches, that game was done. And we were, when it basically was when Elton went out, we were we were screwed, and we just didn't have enough depth, enough rotation. We talk about it on the D-line about how they want that hockey rotation. I think Matt LaFleur wants to have a solid amount of guys that can step in, worst case scenario, that are absolute movers. And Belton, I think, fits that bill. As far as the best value, people might think I'm crazy, but man, Oliver's starting to really grow on me. When you watch, I don't know, I think it was Baldy or somebody put together like 10 clips. And what was more impressive is half of them were him coming off the edge, and he can bend really well, and he's really fast. And then the other half was him playing off stack backer, playing really well, like diagnosing runs, diagnosing schemes. He's absolutely shot out of a cannon, like Coach Len just said, and he's really good at avoiding blocks. He honestly reminded me a lot of watching Edger and Cooper, which is pretty insane to think if we had two guys that were like that. And again, he's not super small, but what is he wearing? Like 6'2", around 250-ish or something like that, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, man,
little under 250, I think. But yeah, the threshold control freaks out there are losing their mind right now. Yeah.
Yeah, but he seems like he can get under, and when he bends, he can get under a lot of those bigger tackles, which, and I think he said, he even made the caption, he goes, not since Clay Matthews have they had a more diverse pass rusher that can do a lot.
I was going to say that. I was going to say he kind of, when I turn on the tape, he reminds me of like a poor man's Clay Matthews. And what I mean by that is obviously he's a later pick. What was he, the 5th round? Am I thinking right?
I think so.
But he's a guy that you can kind of use him as a hybrid, you know, and maybe you put a package or two together where he comes in and kind of plays that hybrid role. You don't know if he's blitzing, you don't know if he's dropping. Halfley loves a fire zone blitz, at least last year. He may switch it up this year. We'll see. But yeah, I'm with you on Colin Oliver. I think that's a very very interesting pick. And just so everybody knows, Anthony Belton is wearing 71. Matthew Golden's wearing 22. Savion Williams is wearing 83. Sorrell is wearing 99, like we talked about. Oliver is wearing 45. I like that as a backer number too. I think it's a solid number. 91 is going to be Brinson. Okay. 26 is Micah Robinson, and then 73 is going to be John Williams, the offensive lineman. Now, when you talk about Anthony Belton, the thing that we're supposed to be talking to Devonte Wyatt right now, but listen, I'm going to honor the super chats. I appreciate y'all donating to the channel. We'll talk about what y'all want to talk about. With Anthony Belton, it kind of feels like, Jacob, now I could be wrong, man. It kind of feels like he's our left tackle of the future. Now, you know how Matt LaFleur operates. It's all about getting the best 5 out there. You know, and I like Rasheed Walker, and I don't think there's been a better pick in terms of a 7th rounder who's given us so much value. He's a great pass blocker. He's kind of an average run blocker is what it comes down to. Well, with Belton, I think he's a much better run blocker, at least on the tape, and it's college. We'll see how it transitions to the pros. I think he's a much better run blocker than Rasheed Walker. Maybe not quite as good of a pass blocker, but who knows, man? Maybe by year 2, he can step into that role. And what this does is it kind of prevents you from paying Rasheed Walker. And the other thing to think about is you got Jordan Morgan at right guard, right? He played left tackle his entire career until he got to the league. Now, I've heard a lot of people, Jacob, say that they think Anthony Belton's going to play guard and Jordan Morgan's going to compete for left tackle. And that may be the case. I have no insider information, but me personally, I kind of feel like, why not let Jordan Morgan really settle into right guard and try to take that job from Sean Ryan? Now you got a former starter as the backup. That solidifies that. You got Anthony Belton who can play, like Goody said, he can play left tackle, left guard, right tackle. They feel very, very confident he can play that. He's got the body size to do it all. Let him kind of be that swing tackle, you know. And then, of course, John Williams. Who knows? John Williams may come out and ball out and be better than both those guys. It's a 7th round pick. I have a hard time believing it. But my value pick, though, would probably be Belton, simply because in terms of value, and I know a 2nd round pick doesn't sound like great value, but if he is able to step in at left tackle next year and prevent you from paying Rasheed Walker $20 to $40 million a year, that's great value, you know. So that's kind of how I see that. Thank you for the super chat, Josh. Let's finish up this Devonte Wyatt talk real quick. Excluding his contract, his current 2025 contract, the 1-year extension places him as the 24th highest paid defensive tackle in the NFL in average annual value from the 2026 season. What I mean by that is, forget that 1 year left on his deal. Let's talk about the 5th year option, okay, that 12.9 or whatever it is. If you look at the top paid players in terms of average annual value, this is what they're getting paid at defensive tackle: $31.7 million, $27.5, $24.2, $24, $24, $23.5, $23, $22.5, $21.8, $21.3, $20.7, $20, $17.7 of the top 14 defensive tackles. Okay, and I mentioned that because Devonte Wyatt is going to, I want to say he finished, I had the ranking there, 24th highest paid defensive tackle in 2026. Now, that's before you potentially work out a contract extension where that number may drop. It may blimp a little bit, but as it sits right now, that's why that 5th year option is so important, and why teams typically would try to trade into the bottom of the 1st round so they can at least have that opportunity if they do hit on that pick. It also goes on to say Wyatt led the Packers defensive tackles in PFF grade with a 66.4, placing him 37th in the NFL. Okay, so he was the 37th highest rated defensive tackle across the entire NFL, according to PFF. That would, people see that and go, "Whoa, that's bad." I don't think it's bad. If you're in the top 64, then you're starting caliber, in my opinion. Well, you're 37th. You're on the cusp of being that number one defensive tackle on one of the 32 teams is kind of how I see that ranking. Now, his pass rush grade was significantly better at 71.4, which is what he does well. So when you look at our defensive tackle room from a PFF standpoint, and again, I always put this out there, we don't think PFF is everything, all right? It's a metric we can use, and along with pressure percentage over at Next Gen Stats and sacks and whatever else, EPA allowed, all that stuff that you run stops, whatever. But Devonte Wyatt led the team at 66.4. Then it was Carl Brooks at 61.8, who is returning this year. Kenny Clark at a 60.0, who's returning. And then Kobe Wooden at 50. Nesta Jade Silvera at 44.2. And then you've also got James Esther. You got the rookie Warren Brinson. And you got Keith Randolph Jr. on the team as well. So when you look at that, PFF-wise, Jacob, he's hands down the best defensive tackle we had last year if you're just strictly going off of PFF. If you go off pressure percentage, it's Devonte Wyatt. If you go off of sacks, it's Devonte Wyatt. So I think it's a good move with the fifth-year option. So Wyatt, whose strength is rushing the quarterback, finished the season with 5.5 sacks, ranking him tied for 22nd most amongst defensive tackles in the entire NFL. Right? We see 5.5 and go, whoa, that's a bad year. Well, look at the rest of the defensive tackles across the league. 22nd, but he's the 24th highest paid in terms of average annual value with that one fifth-year option in 26. Tells you it's pretty good value. It's right on par with what he should have been paid, So I feel a lot better about it in that regard. Anything else you want to add to the Devonte Wyatt talk before we move on? Man?
No, it's just when you had that list of the guys, the top, whatever it was, top 14 D tackles, to me, I mean, he fits right there in that 12-5 range for what he's done so far. And I think, though, that he really has the opportunity to take a big step in this next year. And if he does, he could see himself getting some of that big-time money. And if not, then like you said, it's a great plan. It's a good stopgap. We got a couple guys coming up from the rear. And so, hopefully they can figure that out.
I hope they do too, Jacob.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so there's your Devonte Wyatt talk. Let's do this before we jump into the Anthony Belton Scouting Report. Let's hit some Patreon questions real quick. And again, if you want to join our Patreon community, it's the best way to support our show. Scan the QR code in the upper right or go to patreon.com/Packer Fan Total Access. There's 3 tiers. I want to make it very, very clear. There's a $10 tier, a $5 tier, and a $3 tier. All you need is a $3 tier. You get access to everything. The other 2 tiers were just created because people wanted to donate more money. They wanted to support the show a little bit higher level, and we greatly appreciate that. But $3 gets you everything you want. You can set up for an annual membership. You can go monthly, whatever you're more comfortable with. And again, we do giveaways out of there. We're going to be giving away an autographed rookie Bo Melton card this Saturday on the show. We're going to take everybody who's a member of the Patreon group, put them in there and on the wheel, and we're going to spin that sucker and give that card away. We've also got a really cool partnership coming up with a nonprofit here real soon, where we're going to be donating an autographed jersey that we're going to raise some money for some disability proceeds, I guess you could say, for less fortunate people who are battling some stuff, that they were kind of a card they were dealt in this crazy little world. So just a way for us to kind of give back. We're also going to utilize the Patreon group to kind of do something there and try to help promote that. And again, it's all about making the world a little bit better place, leaving it a little bit better than you found the damn thing. I wish everybody kind of looked at it that way. I'm not perfect. I'm not great at it, but I'm trying to get better. And I feel like everybody that's in this community has helped me do that for sure. So let's go to the questions. Nick McSwain. Let's hit a couple more here. Moist Butter, one of the weirdest names in the group, gotta love it, says, so are we trading a 7th round pick to the Titans for Will Levis now that the Titans have drafted Cam Ward? It's a great question. I personally don't want Will Levis for a 7th round pick, and I'm a Kentucky fan. Obviously, he's a former Wildcat. I like what we did with Malik Willis, but that would be hilarious if somehow, some way, Will Levis ends up a Green Bay Packer after we move on from, Malik Willis. Nick McSwain in the chat says, do we know what to expect when Ed Policy takes over for Mark Murphy? I didn't really follow behind the scenes of the Packers in 2007. I just watched the games. Do y'all think any substantive changes will happen? Nick, if it's a good transition, you won't even notice, right? Now, the thing about Mark Murphy that I appreciate is as soon as he took over, he had to deal with the Brett Favre stuff, right? Like he had to fly down to Mississippi and try to smooth this thing over where Brett decided he wanted to come back. And, you got Aaron Rodgers. You already told him he had the keys to the bus. As you guys remember the McCarthy line, the train has left the station or whatever, the bus has left the station. Mark Murphy did a hell of a job handling all that. I think he did. And I think it goes unnoticed that we won a Super Bowl with Mark Murphy at the helm, albeit Bob Harlan was still somewhat involved, but it was Mark Murphy's baby by then. So I think the only thing that you'll see is everywhere that you've seen Mark Murphy on the tailgate tour and all that stuff, right? And the stuff that he's done with Titletown, you're just going to start to see Ed policy involved with that stuff. And I think it is worth noting that maybe these acting CEOs, these acting presidents, Jacob, they're a little more involved with the player relationships than maybe I thought before. Because hearing players and hearing employees at 1265 Lombardi talk about Mark Murphy, like Wes Hawkowitz talking about how much he meant to him and this and that, saying he's one of the best bosses he's ever had, probably the best boss he's ever had. I think that's the type of stuff that's going on behind the scenes, right? He's going to be the business leader, if you will, and calling the shots in that regard. Do you think anything will change? What are you expecting out of Ed policy other than, listen, we got this thing on the straight and narrow. Let's just don't put it in the creek. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I was going to say, I hope he doesn't. I hope I don't notice a darn thing. I hope it's a seamless transition, and I feel like that they've done enough due diligence, and Ed Policy has been around the organization long enough to understand what his job is, what it's not. I think it'll be a great transition. If anything, it's going to be each one that gets, what they have like a tenure, right? It's each 10 years. You can't go more than that. I feel like that what they've done lately is they just keep one up and the other. So the pressure is definitely there to try to at least carry on the legacy. And if you can do that, just carrying it on, I think in the meantime that you're going to end up creating your own legacy, and people will remember you a certain way for that. But
I think it's very well said. Randy in the Patreon group, this is questions for the show in Patreon, says, I'm curious about the current state of Javon Bullard. It looks like Ja might be staying, in which case either Hobbs or Nixon is your preferred nickel. Evan Williams, in my opinion, is not giving back his starting safety spot. That leaves the question, how do we get Bullard on the field? In what scenario minus injuries is he a preferred starter? I like him as a player and think he can be really good. But as it stands, I wonder if we see much of Bullard this year outside of injuries. If he was not a second-round pick, Randy, I would be worried about it too. But we know, man, him being a second-round pick and already having starting experience, I think Bull's going to be on the field. I really do. With that being said, you make a great point. I think it's going to be a hell of a camp battle between Evan Williams and Javon Bullard for that safety spot. Now, Javon Bullard played his best football, Jacob. He played his best football in the slot, no doubt about it. So it may come down to Keyshawn being the odd man out. Maybe is he eating on?
Yeah, of course he's eating.
Unbelievable. Oh, this guy right here. So the way I kind of look at it is, if Keyshawn Nixon's the odd man out, so be it. To me, he's expendable now because we got multiple return guys, right? So it's going to come down to several different camp battles. I think Javon Bullard's going to get an opportunity to win the slot. I think he's going to get an opportunity to win the safety opposite of McKinney. I also think that Hobbs will get an opportunity to win the outside corner spot over Keyshawn Nixon. And this is assuming Jair is going to be on the roster. If Jair is not on the roster, then I think it's going to be Keyshawn and Hobbs on the outside, Bullard in the slot, and this question doesn't even apply. Does that make sense? And how do you feel about it, Jake?
No, I think that's fair to say. You guys know I was number one fan of the Bullard fan club, and he played decent. He definitely played a little bit under what my expectations were, but honestly, I thought he played pretty darn good for being, a rookie in the NFL system. I was even more pleasantly surprised with Evan Williams and just the all-around footballer that guy is and the type of person he is. It just seems like an absolute instant fit. So I agree. Like, I don't want Williams to give up that spot. And obviously we know we have an X. So I think we're, seemingly what was our weakest in a lot of people's eyes position group would be the DBs. I think that very quickly we've kind of turned that into being a pretty good room with some pretty strong backup rotation.
I agree. Emilio, you're the one who kept us well-centered all year long when people would trash on Javon Bullard when he went back to safety because of injuries. But like you had pointed out, and you made a great point on the postgame show, like this guy prepared to be the slot all week long, and then all of a sudden he got thrust into the safety position when Zane Anderson got the concussion, if I remember correctly. So, what I'm seeing here, I see that like Randy's just saying he's curious. I don't think he's worried with this question, but what I'm getting excited because what we got is competition everywhere. You know,
right? Yeah, absolutely, and that's where I'm thinking like. I would still think that he probably wants to keep him at safety and just, then maybe work Evan in. I think that's where he wanted him firsthand. He was just really forced into playing that slot position a lot last year. So I am curious to see, what that will be like. I'm glad I didn't, cut on him. We sat 3 feet away from him. So
he might have
just smacked him upside the head on his way out,
Hey, a little bit bigger than he looks on TV next to the other guys too, right? When he came in, he looked thick.
Broad shoulders, absolutely. So, no, I am excited to see him get back out there, but I don't think that they're gonna try to force him into that slot forever.
Everybody on the podcast, like, what are y'all laughing at? Andy Watkins came in here and called Emilio Canilio. Absolutely love it. All right, so there are your Patreon questions. Again, just another perk of being in the Patreon group. It works just like a super chat. We appreciate all the super chats here on YouTube, but if you're in the Patreon group, fire a question in there. Try to make it as clear as you can. These guys did an excellent job here, and we'll try to get to them as soon as we can for sure.
One more point to that. They brought in Nate Hobbs and paid him. Don't you think that they would want to get the money on the field rather than just a draft pick?
That's the big thing for me, Emilio, is Nate Hobbs is going to be on the football field, just like Aaron Banks is going to be on the football field. No doubt about it. And that's kind of why I'm feeling like looking at Anthony Belton with the second-round pick. When was the last time we drafted a second-round pick that didn't start? I mean, think about it. Last year, Javon Bullard started.
Yeah.
Edwin Cooper started. The year before, I'm trying to think of who the second-round pick was the year before. Christian Watson started, right? Yeah. I believe that was
got a couple reps to begin the season, and by midway, they're basically starting, right?
And then Josh Myers, against most fans' requests, right? Josh Myers don't look too damn good. They still started him because it's a second-round pick. I think Anthony Belton's probably going to end up on the football field somewhere. We were talking about potential trades earlier. Maybe Rasheed Walker is a trade candidate. Me no likely that because that we're right back to where we were in Philly, right, Jake? You get one lineman down, you're screwed, right? So type of thing. So I really like the depth we've created. United Bates asking the tough questions now in here. He says, waffles or pancakes? We'll end the hour one with this question. For me, it's tough, man. I've grown – waffles have grown on me. But I've been a pancake-eating mother for my whole life. I love pancakes. Some of you guys got that draft day reference there. What about you boys, pancakes or waffles here? This is what the people want to know.
See, you're asking the wrong question here. It's not waffles or pancakes. It's just yes. It's what type of syrup are you using. See, my grandfather, he taps his own trees and boils down his own syrup, and it is – Bro, unreal. It's different, dude. It's so different than the stuff you get in the stores. You can put that on spaghetti, and
we got friends from Vermont. Shout out to Brittany and Brian. They never watch this stupid show, I promise you that. But they have a farm up there and a lot of property, and they tap their own trees as well. And we were eating pancakes one night, and I was like, I can't get enough syrup. She said, any syrup? And I was like, yeah, it is. She went, I'm going to bring you some real syrup. And I'm thinking, oh, God, here we go. Somebody from a different part of the country going to try to convince me that what I've been eating my whole life is trash. It's trash. That stuff is real deal, dude. Real syrup. Oh, my God. She said, you're eating sugar water is what you're eating. That's what she said. She was right, too. What you got, Emilio? Waffles or pancakes? A burrito is not an option, sir.
See, because I would take the pancake and probably wrap, maybe a breakfast sausage and then dip it in the syrup. But I think I'm going to have to go waffles because they're just so versatile. You give me an Eggo, watch out. You know what I mean?
Lego my Eggo.
Seriously. But the homemade waffles are where it's at.
Yeah. I'm all about the pancakes. So.
And you can get waffles when you go to the hotel too. You know what I mean? You get that little spinny thing. You pour your own batter.
Unbelievable. Why don't we have pancakes or waffles while we were in Green Bay? Oh, that's right. We were eating cannolis for breakfast. That's right. So.
And chocolate cake.
That chocolate cake hurt you, boy. That stuff was so rich. It needs a run for president. I'm just telling you that now. All right, that's going to do it for hour 1. For those of you listening on the pod, we will see you on the other side for hour 2. We appreciate y'all.